working for us. We think you should consider making a run.
Yeah, Jason, we tell people all the time, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're going to be on the menu. Welcome to Warrior Money, the show devoted to supporting our brother and sister veterans. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
Today, we're joined by Jason Dozier, an Army veteran serving as a councilman in Atlanta. Jason's journey from the military to public service is a powerful example of how veterans can continue to lead in their communities long after hanging up the uniform. So, Jason, here's a big question we got for you. Bottom line up front, it used to be that 80% of Congress were veterans. Now it's less than 18%. Why aren't more of our brother and sister veterans going into political public service?
Yeah. And firstly, just want to say thank you both for having me here.
We're glad you're here.
Absolutely. It's a question that speaks to my heart a lot. It's actually even worse when you look at local government. Only 8% of local government employees are former military veterans. And so
in aggregate?
In aggregate.
Wow.
And so part of it is a big reason why I got involved in working with military veterans and getting involved in military veteran employment is that a lot of veterans and military spouses don't know their why, don't know what they want to do something bigger than themselves. That's why they served, but don't necessarily know how to translate their skill set or translate that ambition into something that's meaningful. And so with government, historically, people have felt that call to serve and beyond just serving in uniform. But I think that part of the challenge that we were experiencing across the country is that people don't find that sense of meaning in government service like they used to.
Yeah, one of our guests on here, Kaj Larson, I don't remember if it was before the show or during the show, said it's really interesting to watch our generation of folks go from uniform service to political public service. It's almost like a graduation from the different levels of service. We talk about transitions being really hard into civilian life, into civilian careers. What's the hardness or the challenge of transitioning from the military into politics? How is that? What is that like for you?
Yeah, it's absolutely a cultural shift. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Waking up at 4:30 in the morning for formation, and you have a cadre of people that you have shared sacrifice with, shared values with, and those are who your brothers or sisters are when you're in the service. But then when you get thrown into the political world, in many cases it can be very transactional. Those relationships that you develop, it can be very cutthroat. You may not always feel like somebody has your back, and so you have to really learn to navigate that world in a very, your survival instincts start to kick in ways that it may not ironically have when you're in the military, because you can trust the people to your six and to your left and to your right, and it's just a different type of way of navigating things.
Yeah.
But
that's such a true. There's so much to unpack in that statement.
Yeah.
We talk all the time about the transitions and why do I still stay connected to my military friends? Generally because I can trust them. And then you come into the civilian world and you don't know who to say to, and then you say the same thing to somebody else, and then all of a sudden it's used against you as a weapon. That transition's a really challenging transition you're going through.
Yeah, and that's why I spent over a decade working with an organization called Hire Heroes USA, and part of the beauty of the work that organization does is it helps veterans and military spouses really feel the confidence that they need to be successful in the civilian workforce, and take those experiences, take those lessons learned, and be able to translate them in a way so that they don't feel like they're alone. They don't feel like they're the only person who's ever experienced the things that they've experienced. They can take that and show that they're just as capable, if not more capable, than the people they're competing with for civilian jobs.
And we're going to dig into that for a second. But for the listeners out there, right? If they're a private first class, they're like, man, Jason Dozier, executive at Hire Heroes, USA, a city councilman in one of the biggest cities in America. Where did it start for you, though? When did you join the Army? Because again, you went to Denison in Ohio, you went to Georgia State, University of Georgia, go Dogs, because
go Birds, go Dogs.
Eagles. Our defensive line is basically the University of Georgia.
It's our farm system?
Yeah. We love the FCC, Georgia Dogs. Don't tell that to my daughter. She comes in an ACC team. But when did you join the Army, and then how did you get to where you are? I mean, I've known you for years now, but let people know how you did it, so maybe you could follow your tracks.
Yeah, well, I started, honestly, born and raised in Atlanta, and I was raised by a family of educators. My mother wasn't an educator, but I have at least two aunts and an uncle who are educators. And I knew that I wanted to do something bigger than myself. My biggest influence when I was in high school was my social studies teacher, who encouraged me to look at Denison University, which was in Granville, Ohio, and me being from Georgia and from Atlanta, it was like, okay, I'll try something different, try something new. And I was a history and education double major. I went to school to be a teacher as well, because that's kind of the lineage in my family. My grandmother was an educator as well. And when I did my semester of student teaching, I was like, you know what? Maybe this ain't the career for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to educate.
Exactly. So I came back home. I had a little bit of soul searching, and I knew I still want to do something bigger than myself. I just didn't know how to manifest that in a way that was meaningful. I had a crisis of purpose.
Yeah, totally.
And so this is 2005, 2006, and I had the hardest conversation I've ever had with my mother, and I was telling her that I had decided to join the Army. And she was upset, she was distraught, and just a few months later, I was shipping off to Fort Benning, Georgia, to Sand Hill.
We were both there.
Yeah. And because I had a college degree, I commissioned as an officer. And
So you went to Benning, and then you went to OCS while you were there.
Correct.
Is that how you did it?
Yeah,
Cool.
that's how I did it. And I would tell you, my 6 years of service in the Army were probably the most. It was one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life, but it was also the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. And I knew that I still want to serve in big ways, even beyond my military service. And so after I left the Army, I made the decision to go to the University of Georgia for graduate school, earning my master's in public administration. And I chose that degree because I got a chance to serve as a scout platoon leader in Iraq. I got a chance to serve in the O3 shop, in the operations shop in Afghanistan. And here I am in Baghdad, in Puli Alam, and Baraki Barak.
Watching Bad Government.
Yes. But being in places that have been on this earth for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and Atlanta is only 170, 180 years old. And so I wanted to come back home and make sure my hometown stood the test of time, so that a millennia from now we can talk about the great city of Atlanta. And so I moved back to Atlanta, and as fate would have it, instead of going into city government, I ended up interning with Hire Heroes USA. At the time, there weren't a lot of paid internship opportunities, and so I was like, hey, I'm going to do my 3-month internship and find a job with the city of Atlanta. And I got offered a job as a transition specialist, working with veterans and military spouses, helping coach them through their transition, helping teach them how to negotiate a salary, how to prepare for an interview. And over a decade later, I continued to do work with that organization, helping to grow it from 15 full-time employees sharing cubicle space to a national organization, 150 employees across the country. Just earlier this year, we hit over 110 veterans and military spouses that we confirmed hired through our services. And I get to continue to do work with Hire Heroes and helping them continue to connect and build and grow. And it's just been an amazing team that I've been a part of all these years. And they've been very supportive of me in my efforts to serve my local community in Atlanta. So when I decided to run for city council back in 2017.
Well, can we stop there real quick? Because there's Hire Heroes through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and there's Hire Our Heroes USA. Walk us through your organization, Hire Heroes USA.
Yeah.
So if I'm there and I'm like, hey, well, I like this guy, Jason Dozier. Like, what does your organization do?
Yeah. So Hire Heroes USA provides personalized, lifelong services that are free to veterans and military spouses. So when if, let's say I was served as a first sergeant in a BSTB. Well, what the hell does that mean to a civilian hiring manager? So we unpack that with the clients that we work with. We first start with your resume. So we do an initial assessment. We figure out what do you want to do when you transition from the military, or if you've already been transitioned, what have you been having trouble with in terms of your job search. And then we make sure that your skills are reflected on your resume. Yeah. So that translation piece is because that's the document that you're taking to all these hiring managers, into these job fairs, into all these spaces. We help you learn how to strategize your job search, leveraging LinkedIn, leveraging the relationships that you have in your home communities, building rapport with people who you may not know how to, build rapport with. And so we teach you those skills. And then when you do get a job interview, we prepare you for the job interview. We have a wonderful team of over 1,500 volunteers, or almost 1,500 volunteers, who can even help coach you with industry-specific mock interview training. And then if you get the job, we help you negotiate your salary. And like I said, we're lifelong services. So we know that a lot of our clients might be looking for another job 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And it's a relationship that we nurture and we build upon, and in a way, our clients become our family because of
That's
that
a
relationship.
really robust network you got going on right there. And you said you've grown a lot over 10 years. How did you get the funding to do that? Like, where does the financial support come to do that? Like, how do you integrate that way?
Yeah, a lot of it is with partnerships with corporations who have been very generous and very supportive of our mission. Walmart Foundation, Wells Fargo. We just announced a partnership with Ripple. It's a $10 million.
With who?
Ripple, it's a company called Ripple.
Yeah.
And so $10 million commitment to Hire Heroes USA and Call of Duty endowment. So the
Video game.
The video game. So you play those Call of Duty games.
Give money back.
A portion of that goes towards veteran serving organizations, and we're the Call of Duty endowment is one of their largest grantees. And so we continue to build on our success by not only getting clients into the places they want to be, but also the data that we provide, the insights that we shed, and the successes that we have are
Money follows outcomes.
Exactly.
Yeah, money follows
Exactly.
outcomes.
Yeah, that coaching and mentoring that y'all do, that's pretty special.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just after this break with more Warrior Money with Jason Dozier when we return. Back. Jason Dozier is with us today to share civic engagement, what it looks like for our brothers and veterans who are running for office. So you went from being a volunteer to running for office, and that's pretty significant. So we're going to get to Jason's perspective on, frankly, how the government shutdown may or may not impact your constituents. So we have September 30th. There's a threat in Washington that they might, frankly, not come to an agreement. They were supposed to meet. They canceled a meeting with the leaders in the House and the Senate and the Democratic side. 1.3 million military personnel might not get a paycheck. How would that affect your constituents in the city of Atlanta?
Yeah. So Atlanta is uniquely positioned compared to many peer cities across the country in that we have a large amount of federal presence in our city between the Center for Disease Control. USAID had a large office before that was shuttered. You have several federal courthouses because we're a regional capital, so there's just a large concentration of federal resources. We have the Small Business Administration. So Atlanta, unfortunately, disproportionately is impacted when we have these huge shutdown sort of conversations or concerns or impacts. And so it honestly becomes incumbent on our city and our state to really step up in a big way to support our not just our veterans, but all of our community members who are connected to the federal government, both employees as well as recipients of health care, recipients of GI Bill benefits, because that then impacts schools and their ability to get the revenues that they need to support their student populations. And so the trickle-down effects are immense, especially for a city like Atlanta.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing. Like my exposure to Atlanta was because I served in the Army at Fort Benning when we were in Columbus, Georgia. I originally got exposed to Atlanta just from like my travel from Benning to Columbus and Columbus back to Benning again to get it out of the city. And I'm always amazed at how big Atlanta was. Like it's kind of stuns me every time I go down there how big it is. Talk to me about the role that you're in right now, the amount of constituents that are in either your district or how your government's laid out.
District 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a fun question to respond to because Atlanta appears big, but we're only 500,000 people, and
I don't know. It looks like the biggest. It's like huge drive through.
It's one of the top 10 largest metropolitan areas in the country, but only 8% of Metro Atlanta is actually City of Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And so downtown Atlanta, where you all have all the tourist stuff, the aquarium,
East Tree Hotel, the one that
Marquez,
spins.
exactly, the sundial.
Yeah,
that's in the city.
I've had a couple pops down there.
Never had one there.
That's in the city proper, and like many cities, our daytime population more than doubles because of the flow of commerce, the economy. City of Atlanta produces so much of the state's GDP, and so I definitely understand why that perception is like, hey, everybody lives in Atlanta. I will say, City of Atlanta is only 500,000 people, and I represent about 45 to 50,000 of those residents. So my district is downtown Atlanta. I have the most the largest portion of downtown Atlanta, so the Georgia Aquarium, College Football Hall of Fame.
I got pictures in all those places. That's awesome.
State Farm Arena when my Hawks beat the 76ers.
It's great having you on the show.
That was a really tough one. Great word about the episode. Really good.
That was the end of Ben Simmons' real professional career.
But I have some very historic communities as well. In fact, I have several colleges, part of Atlanta University Center, so Morehouse College, College, Clark Atlanta University. And so I describe my district as central southwest Atlanta. So the heart of our city, and honestly, is a big part. It's a microcosm of what the city of Atlanta is. And so whether it's history and legacy, whether it's culture, that confluence is in my district.
So how did you go from running this organization or supporting this organization? Like, did you get a phone call? Did you say, put your hand up? Like, what was the process to go from like your civilian life into your potential political life, even before you were a council member? What did that look like?
Yeah. So, while I was working for Higher Heroes USA, I knew I wanted to give back to my home community, give back to my home city in a meaningful way. Had a master's degree in public administration, specialized in local government administration, and I didn't want it to go to waste. So, like many volunteer organizations, you start showing up a couple times, you get asked to do a lot more. So, I would go to my neighborhood meeting. I would go to our some of the planning events that were happening in my community, and I got asked to do more and more. And by the time I decided to run, I at that point had become a neighborhood vice president. I had done community engagement on behalf of several of our communities, and in a way became a de facto community organizer. The Atlanta Braves had just announced they were leaving Turner. I live about half a mile from Turner Field, where the Atlanta Braves used to play. And when the Braves left, those communities were like, hey, what's going to happen? Because they've been here for 50 years, and our entire local economy is based on the Braves being here. And so I got involved with a community group called the Turner Field Community Benefits Coalition. So it's a lot of words, but the meaning behind that was that we wanted, as a community, a seat at the table with any decisions that were being made. And me being super volunteer and getting asked to do more and more, I ended up becoming their spokesperson. So organizing press conferences and writing editorials and op-eds, and really being the face of an organization that was demanding things that were owed to them for decades. And then that, I think, is what drew a lot of attention to me and folks saying, hey, City Hall isn't working for us. We think you should consider making a run.
Yeah, Jason, we tell people all the time, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're going to be on the menu. So you had to fight for that spot at the table. But the reality of it is, when you talk about 600,000 elected positions in America, and you said, I think it was only 8% are veterans, local government, how did you make that decision? You put your name out there? Because when I see veterans who come to me and say, hey, I want to be a congressman like you, et cetera, and I say, hey, listen, first off, there's no I in team, and that's what the military drills in you, but there's an ME. And you got to be comfortable getting on your own 2 feet, talking about your vision and what you're going to do. And I always tell people, it's easy to talk about your opponent and why that person should be fired, but you also have to talk about why you should be hired. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, coming from the Army, the word individual is a bad word, right? And so it's definitely huge leap for me to be able to do that. And part of it is I think I had a strong support network of people behind me that helped encourage me in a meaningful way. My wife being the main person, I wouldn't have made that decision to make that personal and financial sacrifice if it wasn't for her support. But having friends and community members, longtime community members as well, who had been in the trenches during the Olympics and had fought City Hall for decades, really getting behind me saying you should really do this. That does a lot to really to support you and push you in a way that I wouldn't have thought otherwise if I didn't have their support. And so that was a big part of it. But even then, I've been in office for 3.5 years. Sometimes I still get imposter syndrome. So I'm in a meeting with the mayor and with former members of Congress or current members of Congress, and it's hard to really just take it all in that, hey, I'm doing this work that I set out to do so long ago and having some big accomplishments in that path. And I'm just enjoying this every single day that I do it.
And if I could, what I love about you is that you're saying you're not, listen, you're proud of your background as an Army soldier, but you're saying on the policy side, on the political public service side, let's make Atlanta Vetlanta again. Why is that? And why is that important to you? Why is that important for the great state of Georgia?
Yeah. So Georgia is one of the largest states in the country when it comes to the military veteran population. We have several military bases: Fort Benning, Fort Gordon, Warner Robins, Kings Island. And whether you're Army or Navy or Marine Corps or Air Force, a lot of people call Georgia home. And we want to make sure that Atlanta, being the economic engine that it is for the state, the economic engine for the region, helps to define our community and our state in a way that the military has already been doing. So let's retain that talent, let's retain that population, bring them to this economic engine, and let's encourage veterans to call Atlanta home, not just working for the city of Atlanta or the state of Georgia, but working for Norfolk Southern, going to work for State Farm, going to work for NCR, and doing big things for our state. We don't want to lose that talent. Military's been spending millions or billions of dollars to training all these people up. We have all this talent here.
We talk about that so much here. Like, why would you ever want to get rid of? Like, why would you not want to retain that talent? If you're Home Depot or if you're any of these major employers, like, why would you? Or even if you're like the or Georgia Southern or any of these like critical infrastructure, why would you ever want to leave that trained? The kind of trained foundation and let them go someplace else, like that just doesn't compute with me. Why do we want to do that?
Let's keep them at home. And, you know, Georgia's the #1 state to do business. Let's keep that title by ensuring that the population that is best prepared to lead in the decades to come can continue to do so.
I'm really interested in, and it's not on any of the rosters, but I'm really interested in your opinion on this migration of data centers and artificial intelligence and all this cybersecurity. Like, I know Georgia enough to be dangerous. I used to work with TVA quite a bit when I was living in Nashville, like in the Tennessee area. Like, it seems to be a very, very good area to be supportive of, like this emerging AI, this emerging data center kind of economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a funny question because I actually have been leading the fight in Atlanta. I actually pushing back at some of the data centers that have been proposed in the city proper.
Well, that makes sense.
And I largely came into this work because every data center that's built, that's an office building that's not built. That's an apartment building that's not built. And a lot of the data centers that are being built don't have a ton of employees. It's not like you have 1,000 employees coming from, you know, a big headquarter relocation. 500,000 square foot data center might have 5, 10, 20 employees.
With a whole bunch of automation.
With a whole bunch of automation. So then you get into the resource, just the significance of the resources that it uses, whether it's water, whether it's electricity. Thankfully in Georgia, we passed legislation that separates data center power use from regular ratepayers, but other states have seen their ratepayer costs go up because of it. So it's a balance, though. I mean, we need to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of technology. We need to make sure that we future-proof our state in a way that as these technologies start changing our industries, that Georgia continues to be a destination for new tech workers. But we also want to make sure that we preserve communities, we keep costs low because cost of housing is already way high. Cost of insurance for that housing is already way high. Utilities costs, we need to make sure we can keep utilities costs down so we can keep people in their homes. So it's a balance.
I really appreciate that different perspective because like we're from Pennsylvania and our grid there is fragile as it relates to bringing more online. And I totally appreciate your the urban perspective of like, maybe not in Atlanta, maybe someplace else, because there's not actually a net benefit to bringing it here.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
And we came into this saying we want to preserve spaces for people and active spaces for people. So we want restaurants, we want housing, we want office, we want hotels, and unfortunately data centers are, you know, it's a zero-sum game, unfortunately, with the amount of limited amount of real estate that we have.
Really quick, last question. What advice would you give to a young sergeant out there, a young specialist that says, man, I want to be a councilman in my hometown someday?
Yeah, I would say know your why. You know, why do you want to be a council person? Why do you want to follow? Please don't follow my footsteps. But why do you want to pursue this path? And if you find that why, then take the necessary steps to get there. Get to know your community. Get to know the leaders in your community. Get to build rapport, and then let that be the foundation for your future growth and success.
Yeah, that's great. Great.
Jason, thanks for joining us on Warrior Money. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Let's make Atlanta Vetlanta once again under your leadership, my friend. All right, so listen, that's our show. Listen, subscribe, and review Warrior Money on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you hear podcasts, or find us at Yahoo Finance. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze. We'll see you again next week.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.